So an intensive was basically a 6-hour session where we would go through pretty much an entire chapter of maths. We could go through in financial maths, we could go through complex numbers, something like that. And I found them most beneficial out of any of the classes.
Those intensive classes were great as well, that you just run over a whole section off the maths course that you could have maybe missed in school, a few classes here and there, and it's great to just run over with Jerome Paul and get it, really finish it up.
My parents knew more about where I was in maths than any other subject because definitely they were getting contact. Yeah. They were very comfortable with where I was at maths because they knew, because they were talking to Jerome Paul like about how I was getting on, where my grade was at.
Other parents as well.
Oh yeah, that's actually really true.
Parents are kind of more like in the loop as well, and they get the text directly, and everything works well. It's like cogs in a clock. It's a well run machine.
Were my parents in the loop? Yeah, of course, my parents were confident that maths was kind of like my safe subject nearly, because as long as I was going to GK tuition, they kind of knew that I was staying on top of maths. They saw my results from the GK tuition test throughout the year, and they were confident that I'd be able to do well in maths. Jerome Paul as well were really good at communicating with them how I was doing. If I had any trouble with anything, they'd organise a one-on-one, and my parents were happy that I was in good hands.
I think it was great having a facility where your parents come in and check on your progress a few times through the year so they can keep involved, and it's great to have that encouragement through the year as well.
And the flexibility of the classes is another really good aspect of GK tuition, because even though I usually went on the Wednesday, it wasn't always suitable on the half day after school, so sometimes I'd have to go on a Thursday or I'd have to go on the Monday, and just knowing that that resource is there available for you whenever you need it the most is a real assurance, because then there's no stress if you miss class on Wednesday, because you can just go the next day, or you can go on weekend, so it's really no stress.
I found the online videos the most useful thing for me in the whole of maths, because if I couldn't ring somebody, I can literally just go online, look up the exam paper, check with Paul. Paul had it all done out. It was perfect. He took it right out of our hands.
And you got to visualise what you were doing. It wasn't just seeing a solution online. He was actually walking you through each part. Yeah. And that kind of brings the whole Grinds school to another level.
The online videos were probably the best tool outside of the educators themselves that GK tuition gave me, because if you were sitting at home, if you were stressing over an exam question that you just couldn't figure out, you could just go onto their website and you could look at the video, and the way Paul breaks down on the website is so step by step, it's so thorough that by the end of the corrections you can't really help but feel like you understand it completely, and if you don't, you can just go back and watch it again.
During the year I found the online videos very helpful, because when you were coming up to a test and there was stuff you didn't know, it was easy to just go on and look, and it meant it was nearly as good as being in class itself.
Yeah, but working with other people, so you could see how other people could figure stuff out. So like, I'm not a maths head, I never was, but working with people who would be definitely helped, because you could see how they would tackle a question. Like I would have different ways for different questions, and so would other people, so you got to see how that worked.
Do I feel like I got individual attention? Absolutely. Like, when you're going from a class of 30, if you have 40-minute classes in school and you're going from a class of 30 to a class of 10 or even less for an hour and a half, you can't help but get individual attention, and there'll usually be 2 teachers present. Jerome Paul will be there, and then usually someone else will be there as well to help out. You're in a class of 10 or less, as I said, and they're going around, they'll give you questions, they'll give you a little bit of time to do the questions, they'll go around and give you a hand if you need it, and then they're corrected there in front of you. Solutions are gone through really well, the solutions are really, really thorough, and if you have any issues personally, you can just raise your hand and someone will come over to you straight away and run it through with you really thoroughly.
The thing that really set GK tuition apart, I thought, was the fact that the classes were small, and if you ever had any trouble, they'd go out of their way to make sure that you had solved the problem before they moved on with the class.
Felt I got individual attention, like could stick up my hand, ask questions, even like you do get individual attention of the teachers, but even just like the fact that you're in a class, you're sitting beside somebody, like we always ask each other questions, or like if I was sitting beside any of the girls, anyone, like you always just ask each other how to do it. But yeah, you could put up your hand, you could ask for a one-to-one.
I felt I got individual attention even in the classes as well as the individuals, because normally there was 2 teachers there, and the second teacher walking around would make sure that you would understand what was going on.
What really helped me stay on top of maths during 6th year was going to Grinds all the time, because every Wednesday I'd go down to the education centre and I'd go in for an hour and a half, and I knew that I'd be getting an hour and a half of really solid study done in maths. Even starting from September, an hour and a half of math study per week even is really, really beneficial. You'll go in, you'll be covering topics kind of slowly at first, and as the year goes on, like what might take you 2 weeks to cover at the start of the year will end up only taking you maybe a class to cover by the end of the year. You start off really slow and gradual, and then as the year goes on you pick up the pace. But because of GK Tuition, you're kind of able to keep on top of it, so even with the faster pace you kind of accelerate with that pace as well, so by the end of the year you're able to go through entire chapters in a matter of hours.
I have to say the classes that ran during the week were really helpful during the year leaving cert, because if you had something on after school, like a project due or something along those lines, you could go to a different class for maths and you'd be picking up in the very same class that you missed during the week. So I have to say that was very helpful during the year.
That like every single week we were getting, the class was study, then you'd come home, you'd do your homework, that was study. Like the workshops and all that, they were like ideal. I found them the most useful workshops, just working through exam papers and all that. You're
doing 6 full exam papers in 2 months. It seems really daunting. Even now when I say it, I can't believe that I actually managed to do it. But when you go in on the day in June, when you go into maths paper 1 and maths paper 2, it kind of just feels like another test. You're so well prepared at that stage to go in, sit down, you're calm, you know your time, you know your timing for each question, and you just sit your test and there's no worries. You usually have time left over then at the end to go through it. And it's really because with GK Tuition all the tests are timed, you're in an exam environment, it's really exam oriented, which is like one of the biggest differences from when you're in school. So doing six full maths papers in April and May was probably the most helpful part out of the entire year, because then once I went in June I was able to sit down, know my time and do my questions without worrying.
I think the biggest benefit of doing the past paper before leaving cert was just the whole exam experience of getting your timing right and being able to work through the exams. That it was the actual leaving cert, so it's like doing another mock paper again. You just get more experience and you get to a point that you're just so used to sitting the paper. When you go in June, it's no massive shock because maths won the first paper, so I thought that was great. Just you feel like just another test, and that was a great option there.
Yeah.
So from doing we did 6 exam papers with GK Tuition, and from doing those you just learn experience of just exam timing, because at the end of the day if you can't finish the exam you're not going to do the best you can.
Yeah, no, maths is so much about timing, which I didn't realise until we did those tests. I think with GK Tuition, like it wouldn't have hit you. Like the only way to improve a grade is to actually keep repeating exam papers, but then exams as well. And the fact that it was like exam conditions, like you had timing, it was marked and given back to you. You were given feedback. We always went through it. Like it was really thorough from start to finish, and I just found them really useful in just getting used to it. Like I wasn't as panicked. Some subjects you're panicked, like you don't do English paper 2s, you don't do 6 English paper 2s.
No.
But I had done 6 full maths papers, so like I was totally like comfortable when I came to the exam.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that prepared me for the exam, I'd say, would be the constant tests. You know, when you have done so many tests, when you go into the actual exam you don't panic and you're completely prepared for whatever they decide to throw at you.
Yeah,
go to GK
definitely.
Do it. Don't question it. Just do it. It's really good.
No, honestly, because it takes it out of your hands a bit as well. Like maths is such a stress, because with other things you can read it out of the book and you know how to do it. Maths is something that, like, unless you've somebody sitting there with you to show you how to do it, if you're not confident in that area, it's impossible to touch off. So definitely GK Tuition.
It takes the knots out of it. So if you're sitting at home trying to do a maths question, you're getting frustrated, at least I knew I could come in and ask Paul, ask Jer about it.
Yeah, 100%.
And you could figure it out then, and you could see the solution, see how you could have done it, go and do it again, but not get knotted within yourself, because maths is like that.
GK Tuition.
That's
woo!